All right. Hey everyone, welcome. Mark, good to see you. Glad you can make it. Lots of new names popping up on the screen. We haven't had this is our 5th, and we haven't had one I think this is our first one in 2024. So we are starting up the stakeholder meetings again. So if you've been here before, welcome back. And if it's your first time, welcome. Hey, Eric, glad you could make it. Yes, so we'll wait just a few more minutes while folks enter, and then we'll start our presentation. Hey, Chris, welcome. I've never met you before. How'd you hear about it?
Hello there. I'm with AIA Maryland Architects, and
Awesome.
interested in learning more about it and see if there are ways that we can help.
Excellent. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us.
Mhm.
And anyone else I can pick on? If you want to say hello, if we've never met, feel free. Hey, Tyreek, thanks for coming on camera.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tyreek Charlouse. I am a recent graduate, architecture graduate from Morgan State University, and a city planner for the Department of Planning for Baltimore City and Chat.
Excellent. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Ren Southard invited me. I'm excited to be here. I also recently went to the Netherlands in March. So I'm very interested in this kind of topic because it's really big over there. And we love to see it cross the seas. So
yeah, right on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you learn any Dutch? I've actually been learning Dutch as part of my academic hobby.
No, only probably thank you. Other than that, no.
Word.
Hi, Shayna. Welcome. All right. We'll give it like 2 more minutes, and then we'll start our presentation. And then we've got at least 4 guest speakers here tonight that are joining us from across the country. And we'll give a plug towards the Build Reuse Conference, especially if anyone here on this in this room right now has the word sustainability in their title. It's strongly encouraged to come to the Build Reuse Conference, where we gather at least once a year to talk about all things decon and meet all these amazing professionals and experts from across the country. And yeah.
I'm currently giving my voice.
And welcome, Councilwoman Odette Ramos. Glad you could make it tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thanks for hosting.
Yes. We've been meeting with the Councilwoman on and off for the last couple of years as we work on drafting this bill and getting stakeholders' input. And we keep doing our research and attending conferences and learning more and getting more inspiration from cities that are leading the way through policy. Some doing policy and some are just doing the work. So we're here to share all those good pieces of information that we've gathered over the years. Okay. We had about 36 people registered. So hi, Abby. Glad you could make it. Welcome.
We're recording, so if anybody would miss the beginning, they'd be able to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, let's do it, Dante, should we? All right, I'm gonna start sharing screen. Stand by.
Oh, that's perfect timing because I was on mute anyway. So
Perfect. How do we look? Does everything look good?
Yeah,
it looks good.
over here.
All right, let's do it. Take it
Great,
away.
great. All right, so yes, hello everyone. Welcome to our fifth stakeholders meeting, hosted today by our Zero Waste Future Incorporated. My name is Dante Swinton. I am the director of our Zero Waste Future, alongside Steph Compton and Joseph Lopez. We are happy to bring this event to you today, getting back into the groove that we started 2 years ago, as Steph mentioned, and we're happy to have you here from new, or if you started connecting with us back in 2022. Next slide.
You got it. Come on, next slide. There it is. Okay, cool. So we've been researching and reading a lot of excellent reports. So today we share those deconstruction nuggets with you to present a snapshot of deconstruction with sources provided. So our lineup of speakers today span from across the country. We'll hear from city leadership in San Antonio, Texas, Boulder, Colorado, that have implemented a policy and exemplify diversion methods that create jobs and value for the reusability of reclaimed materials. We will also hear from experts in the field that have over 40 years of combined experience and will speak on the value of reclaimed materials and exactly how they did it. Followed by the tenets of the bill, the ReBUILD Act, which is the proposed legislation for Baltimore. And deconstruction and zero waste is happening now. It's profitable, it's viable. All we have to do is collaborate on planning the work and working the plan. Next slide.
Great, thank you, Steph. So let's start from a global perspective and work our way down. When we talk about waste, we typically are talking about municipal solid waste, or trash, from households and business. And that topic is crucial to a city like ours, which depends on a toxic incinerator. But we have to consider the impact of construction and demolition waste as well. As you can see, C&D waste is responsible for 1/3 of all resources extracted and 1/3 of the world's waste world. Demolition in particular is responsible for 90% of the C&D waste, with the other 10 from the construction. And next slide.
All righty. So building materials alone are a massive part of the world's extracted materials, guaranteeing to be a major contributor to climate change. Manufacturing the materials that make up our buildings produces over 10% of the world's carbon emissions. To give some greater context, the aviation industry contributes about 3% of global carbon emissions. So building materials account for 4 times as much of that embodied carbon. Next slide.
Great, thank you, Steph. Closer to home, some 150 million tons of C&D waste find its way to landfill every year, even though much of those materials could be recovered. The demolition, materials are commingled, like this picture shows, and like household waste, that reduces the potential value that exists in recovery. And so we have to ask ourselves, what exactly are we doing as a society right now? Lee and Patterson, back in 2006, probably said it best. Demolition turns assets into liabilities. Instead of utilizing that building again, or maximizing the value of the individual components, jurisdictions are often responsible for the long-term management of these materials. We need to develop a system that meets the mandate of a sustainable future, and that's why we are here today. Next slide.
So what is deconstruction? The careful dismantling of structures piece by piece in order to harvest the materials to be salvaged for reuse. And deconstruction is a money maker. It's worth $1.4 billion in revenue just in the year of 2022. So in fact, when compared to the US economy as a whole, material reuse industries are expected to grow at a faster pace. In the next 10 years, growth in reclaimed lumber, aggregate, and plastics are projected to outpace the US economy overall. So we're no longer referring to it as the waste stream, because when we implement reuse practices, it's the resource stream. So who's reaping these benefits? We are.
Thank you, Steph. So here is a great infographic from the City of Nashville's Construction and Demolition Guide commercial projects. If we start from the bottom, we have the usual commingled materials with little to no value. There is a middle ground where some of the recyclable materials, they are sent off-site, as you can see in the middle of the screen here. And while you get some diversion, you will not get as much as the top image here, which shows source separation on-site of any transport materials, maximizing their value. Next slide.
So the deconstruction hierarchy image taken from the city of Nashville is shown here. The top green section highlights reuse. Design for less waste. Nod to the architects that are designing our zero waste future. And we'll see examples of where that has already taken place in our city. Blue highlights recycling, whereas the least desired outcome is highlighted in red at the landfill. The future is prioritizing reuse. Here we see an example of a truly missed opportunity with the old Baltimore City Community College Bard building in the Inner Harbor. It was built in 1976. This building had been vacant since 2009, and proposals to repurpose the site were rejected by the college while it sat vacant for 15 years. A quote taken from the architect's newspaper says, "One of Baltimore's former housing commissioners was an architecture aficionado who kept a wish list of prominent architects he'd like to see design buildings for the city's skyline. And he landed many of them. Others enlisted to design buildings in downtown Baltimore included Henry Cobb for the World Trade Center Baltimore, Edward Durrell Stone for the Maryland Science Center, and Benjamin Thompson and Associates for the Harbor Place Pavilions. We need to prioritize architects that are designing their buildings with the future of sustainability in mind." And I don't know how many of y'all drove past this demolition taking process. I think it's almost done. There's like not that much left, but I can easily see 1% of materials that could have easily been salvaged for reuse and construction for a new building. But when you take a wrecking ball, nothing is safe for reuse.
Thank you, Steph. So, in fact, using reclaimed materials can save developers money. Just one example is reused steel. As of April 2024, recycled steel costs about 1/3 the price of new steel in the US. Obviously, there's a lot of savings there. Of course, not every reclaimed material will save you money. New wood is far more plentiful and therefore cheaper to acquire for new projects. However, it does not have the strength nor character of reclaimed wood, and the aesthetic is very different and less desirable. Next slide.
So here we'll take a couple of snapshots of cities with examples of deconstruction. So in Pittsburgh, the current process of demolishing buildings mechanically is both expensive and environmentally harmful. So since 2015, the city of Pittsburgh has spent over $12 million in demolishing structures and issued private demolition permits valued at over $24 million. The mayor at the time in 2021 realized that there needed to be a change.
Indeed. And so if we move over to San Antonio, a city much larger than Baltimore has implemented deconstruction policy. The city's deconstruction ordinance began in phases, starting in 2022 with all city executed removals of residences that or fewer that were built in 1920 and historical buildings built in 1945 and 70 Phillips will expound on this later. It is important to share that San Antonio's commitment to waste diversion as the nation's 7th largest city is something we should look to consider Baltimore. Next slide.
So here in Milwaukee, it's a similar size as Baltimore, being the 31st largest city in the country. And in Milwaukee, we glean lessons learned from false starts and suspensions and issues with hiring contractors due to not meeting the local hiring aspect in their contracts. In Baltimore, we're working on the most forward-thinking policy, so understanding these pitfalls is crucial.
So Portland was the guinea pig in the US, passing the first deconstruction ordinance back in 2020. Like San Antonio, it had a phased approach, first requiring all single-dwelling and historic structures, 1960 and earlier, to be deconstructed. This was followed by an expansion to all pre-1940 single-family homes and designated historic structures back in 2020. Next slide.
So in Detroit, we highlight more lessons learned from a city with a similar size to Baltimore, also with a trash incinerator that has since been closed and was demolished last year. They also have similar issues of a large vacant housing stock and the need to remove blight. So despite there not being a policy, the Architectural Salvage Warehouse of Detroit is a nonprofit doing deconstruction in the city, attempting to reclaim the valuable old growth wood used in their older housing stock. Executive Director Chris Rutherford states that out of the 2,500 projects slated for demolition in 2023, they're hoping to win demolition contracts so they can partially deconstruct 50 projects this year of 2024 and over the next coming years, 50 each year, which would be a first for a deconstruction-focused company in Detroit. Goes on to say that the climate for it is changing in our favor, he said of deconstruction. People are starting to realize that construction and demolition waste is a huge component of what's going on into the landfill, of what's also producing carbon emissions. City leaders, he added, were doing the cheapest things they can, which externalizes the cost, of course, by filling up the landfills, but you can understand the motivation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steph. All right, so we can even look to smaller communities for leadership on deconstruction. Boulder, Colorado, about a fifth the size of Baltimore, was home to one of the largest commercial building deconstructions in the country, with the breakdown of the old Boulder Community Health Building. Some 60+ million pounds of the site were salvaged and reused, including steel and a new fire station. And some of the materials would not be leaving the site at all, as it would contribute to the foundation of a future affordable housing project. Now, as Steph mentioned earlier, think again about the 173,000 square foot bar building downtown here in Baltimore that was demolished or deconstructed, and how many millions of pounds of materials could have been reused. Next slide.
You got it. All right, so after considering all of the lessons learned, it makes sense to do deconstruction over demolition to reduce pollution and create jobs. So Baltimore has the opportunity to be a leader in the country with passing the ReBUILD Act. So let's take a look at the tenets of the bill next.
Thank you, Steph. Here are some of the main tenets of what we envision in the ReBUILD Act. Any building, commercial or residential, that would be safe to enter or able to be stabilized would require deconstruction. If hazardous materials are identified, abatement would also take place, like lead and asbestos. The city would increase demolition permits and establish deconstruction permits, which would be cheaper to make the approach more attractive. And the revenue from these permits would support the administration of the program and provide grants for new or existing businesses in the field. The piece that would make Baltimore a landmark policy, however, is the requirement of new developments to use an increasing minimum percentage of reclaimed materials to spur demand. Credits would be available for a developer surpassing the minimum by 4 points via weight or cost project. Homeowners would also have access to a tax credit using reclaimed materials.
All right.
Next slide.
So in this Fast Company article titled, "Buildings are terrible for the environment and this arena is proof," according to the analysis, the former Royal Farms Arena was renovated for the CFG Bank Arena, eliminating the need for an estimated 3,500 tons of steel, 25,000 cubic yards of concrete, and 1.45 million gallons of water. The project's embodied carbon, or the amount of emissions that result from the production of building materials and construction, was a tiny fraction of what it could have been if the building were newly constructed. Next slide.
All right, so just as a basic example, if the city's minimum were 1%, a developer would need to hit 5% by weight of the project or 5% of the cost of the project. In the example here on the screen, both of those numbers are $13,750 and 13,750 pounds, just to give you an idea of what would be required for developers with new. Next slide.
You got it. So from our EPA nuggets, we've discovered that less than 1% of building waste is being reclaimed and reutilized in new building construction around the country, which means there's plenty of runway to increase. Here's what a 4-year rollout of what the policy could look like, which includes a 2-year period from passage to the deconstruction requirement. So for example, if the bill passed today, the deconstruction requirement would go into effect in 2026. And this would pair well with the recent building code update that requires 70% reuse or recycling of construction materials. Obviously, our preference is for reuse over recycling. Next slide.
Absolutely. So here's a quick breakdown of the materials that would qualify for the minimum percentage. This would include infrastructure like AC units and piping, to structural components like bricks and drywall, interior details like appliances and lighting, and exterior details like existing vegetation. It's important to note this is by no means an exhaustive list, which would be provided in the bill.
All right, so next
Excellent.
we're going to transition to next steps and what the bill would look like. So we have 4 actions outlined for this building reuse ecosystem that requires collaboration with all of its stakeholders. We have resources. We have a resources page to share where all of our nuggets came from today, and that will be shared with all attendees as well as the recording of this. You can expect that in a follow-up email. And thank you to those that attended today. Now, who else should be here that isn't? As we collaboratively build the reuse ecosystem, help us get them connected for our next meeting. And we're also seeking support for organizing the next Build Reuse conference as we vie for it to be hosted here in Baltimore. Dante and I have been attending the Build Reuse conference since 2021, and we met many of today's presenters there. Build Reuse is excited for us to host in Baltimore to bring this network of deconstruction professionals to our city. And we're looking for local partners to help us submit for the RFP for the conference to come to Baltimore. Our national community has certified deconstruction trainers that we could invite to train our workforce while we identify houses and buildings that could host this training. Next slide.
Excellent. So that is the end of our presentation. We're going to spend a couple of minutes to try to answer questions that have come up in the chat, if any. I have my screen minimized at the moment. And for those we can't answer, you might be able to get an answer from one of our next speakers. The ReBUILD Be More site we are in the midst of updating to catch up to everything in 2024, but there is still a lot of useful information on the site right now. So with that, we will open to see if there are any questions, and we'll take a few minutes before we hop into our next segment.
Okay. I didn't see any come in through the chat. So
We just had one pop up right now. It's
great.
That's great, but how much is this going to cost, or what's the cost?
That's always the question.
Indeed. So when it comes to deconstruction, it typically takes, I believe, 2 to 3 weeks to manage a building rather than demolishing it. Take 1 to 2 days. Of course, if you do choose to demolish it, you're now having to deal with the excess of dust, whether it's lead or asbestos that could be coming out of these buildings. You may wet it down, which can minimize impact on from 600 feet to maybe 300 fewer. But you're now concentrating those materials into the ground, but again, ultimately need all over another cost. However, the great value of materials that you're recapturing are very much worth the price of committing to go in this direction. One thing about the ReBUILD Act is that we would make sure that contractors would garner grants from the city to run these programs. As I recall, the current demolition setup is that the city puts things out to bid. The contractors say, hey, we can knock this down for X dollars. They do it, the city reimburses them. It'd be the same situation here, deconstruction, just that it would take a different amount of time, and again, minimizing the externalities of environmental impacts of communities when it comes to any potential lead asbestos other community. As I mentioned, we are going to have a number of speakers who have already worked on this in different communities, including San Antonio, the largest city in the country, not largest city, 7th largest city in the country, who have experienced this and have been working on this for a number of years now. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity to reflect on whether the cost is too much, or in fact it's the same or beneficial for everybody. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and then the next one I see was from Larry. Hey, Larry, welcome. Glad you could make it. Excellent question as far as considering the demand and who's going to buy these materials. So, I mean, the first always comes to mind is Second Chance. So shout out to Second Chance. I know they're here today. I know they said that if a bill like this, once a bill like this passes, they're ready to double their workers and they're ready to double their workload, so and expand. That's just one example, but we all, not we all know, but the experts know that this is a business creator and this will just generate more of those local businesses. So what we're advocating for is like, we have to build up this local economy and get all these moving pieces moving at the same time. So we can accept those materials once they come. And we're going to keep this Q&A real short because we do have a jam-packed session. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Dante, before and I put the accepted materials up because the councilwoman.
Yeah,
Thank
really
you for
quickly.
thank you for putting that up.
Yeah, go ahead, Odette.
I'm really excited about this. I have the same, obviously trying to work through what Larry was talking about. It's, getting it to second chance is one thing, but then somebody's got to get it. Somebody's going to buy it. And so we either have to incent it or we have to mandate it. And we have right now kind of a combination of the two. But I'd be curious to hear from folks on the call what they think about that. Because that is, I think, the last missing piece, at least in my mind, relative to this bill. I think we can get the rest kind of moving. It's just that, we need to make sure that this stuff is going to get used. And I think it will, like was said earlier, will save people money because, it's not something that you have to wait on supply chain and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm interested in,
Yeah.
in hearing.
And ideally,
Yes.
we want a direct sale. We want to like sell it from the site that it's happening at. So it doesn't have to.
Right. Right. So I'm going to touch base on a couple of things that have been brought up, and then we're going to hop to the next vote. So when it comes to distribution, as Steph mentioned in the bill, we actually list that want sort separation at site, sell at site, delivery at to a location like a second chance or loading dock, and then reuse through institutions, whether it's Hopkins, Morgan State, whatever it may be, park foundations, and then you continue to go down the list. So there would be a hierarchy of exactly where those materials would go. And so you would be able to figure out, I need to get this hauler to take this to loading dock. I need to get this hauler to take this to second chance, or I can offload this here on site. And in terms of the materials, obviously, as we continue to increase the number of buildings that are deconstructed over demolished, more of the reclaimed materials will be available. I know people are big fans of Baltimore's brick, our clay co-composition here. Obviously, there's a lot of buildings that have that valuable brick. So as the years move forward and as the minimum increases from 1% to up to 4, up to 8, there will be more material available for those demands as it goes on. And last but not least, just from the job creation, right now the city sends about 300,000 or so tons of C&D waste to Quarantine Road landfill every year. So think of the amount of jobs that would be necessary to maximize that material rather than burying it down in Curtis Bay Hall. And so I think there was one other question, Brandie, about incinerators. Our incinerator burns up to 2,250 tons of material every day. Let's keep going.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So I do want to give a quick acknowledgement to Quest Joliffe. He was scheduled to come tonight, but cannot make it. And he was going to be coming as the program manager in King County, Washington. His presentation was going to be deconstruction versus demolition. Is it viable from the horse's mouth? And I just loved that commentary, and so I wanted to at least explain what he was going to talk about, and maybe we can meet him in the future if we get the conference to come here to us this year. But next we are going to lend the floor to Stephanie Phillips, joining us from San Antonio, Texas, where she is the Senior Deconstruction and Circular Economy Manager. Take it away, Stephanie.
Oh my gosh, sorry, I forgot to unmute before I shared. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be joining you from San Antonio. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague, Jess Anderson, who's also on the call. She may be my duplicate, like another Stephanie Phillips, but she's like behind me in the room. She's our recent hire as a senior deconstruction specialist. So we've officially doubled the size of our team. Very exciting. But as Dante and Steph mentioned, I'm representing San Antonio, which adopted a deconstruction ordinance in 2022. So I'm going to give a very big highlight of what that looks like on the ground here in Texas. And I'm happy to jump in the chat and answer any questions as we continue with these amazing lineup of guest speakers. So thank you, Steph and Dante, for bringing us together. Just some level setting. You heard that San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the country. That is very true. We're knocking on the door of Philly. We are also one of the fastest growing metros. And I like to mention that because that's really key. We are seeing a lot of development pressures. If y'all are familiar with Austin, that is just an hour and a half north of us, and they are overflowing with people, and a lot of people are moving south to San Antonio. So what that means is we see a lot of buildings requests to be demolished, as well as just new development in generally. So we are averaging around 550 to 600 buildings demolished annually, just for some numbers. That includes all kinds of building types, ranging from single family housing to, missing middle housing, even like newer gas stations that were built like 5 years ago. That includes everything. And I think another important dimension to mention is our climate pressures. So here in San Antonio, we live, I keep saying this, on the surface of the sun. That is not a exaggeration. We are dealing with increasing extreme heat, and that is a public health issue, especially related to some of the comments from Dante earlier about the dust created by demolition and kind of the effects of demolition to communities around it. I always say demolition doesn't happen in a bubble. It happens to buildings, but it also happens to communities. So all of those public health disparities are very much exacerbated in the 3 months when we see literally 100-degree temperatures for that amount of time. We also see a lot of pressure on our water and resource scarcity, and then energy reliability and the cost of energy. And then another climate dimension is just housing affordability, accessibility, and condition. And this is probably the most relevant when we're talking about directly to our built environment. But you'll see from what I touch on that our ordinance is not just about waste diversion and mitigating, the environmental disparities created by demolition itself, but also how we can support our existing affordable housing units and, repair what's already there instead of letting buildings fall into disrepair, which is the primary reason why they're demolished in San Antonio. So our deconstruction ordinance, we adopted it in September of 2022. Something that you don't see represented on this slide is how long it took us to get there. So we started talking about a deconstruction policy way back in 2017. So it took us over 4.5 years to get that ordinance adopted. Depending on where you are, that may seem very short or that may seem very long. But you'll hear in the next few slides that it was very intentional, and I admire Baltimore so much because that intentionality is in their bill as well. So you heard that our ordinance was a phased approach. So our ordinance is residential structures only, and right now the current phase that's in effect is any small scale structure defined as a fourplex or smaller, so single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, built in 1920 or earlier citywide has to be deconstructed. And if it's located in a historic district or neighborhood conservation district, basically a protected area, that build date is 1945. And our ordinance is automatically expanding in about a half a year. So on January 1st of 2025, those build dates are going to increase to 1945 and earlier citywide and 1960 and earlier in those protected areas. And the size of housing stock will also increase. We're going to start capturing 8plex and smaller, so kind of smaller apartment complexes. And I'll show you some data on the impact of numbers in a bit. So I love this slide because everyone says, okay, you have a deconstruction ordinance, that's great. But the deconstruction ordinance is very much sitting on this building block of efforts that we've worked on over those years and that we continue to work on. So some of these are the questions that you're hearing today. One of the first things that we did back in 2018 was form a deconstruction advisory committee through the city. And some of the questions that we consistently got were, who is going to do all of the work, right? And where is all the material going to go? So deconstruction workforce and assessing and investing in our reuse infrastructure in San Antonio have been like probably the key drivers of our program here. But on top of that are things like community engagement, answering the question, why does this matter to me personally, as well as my community, my neighborhood? Developing partnerships, because I'm representing the city, and obviously the city can't do any quality policy by itself, especially one that's trying to advance this industry. So who should be involved? How can they help ensure success, not only to develop the ordinance, but to make sure that it's effective long-term? And then data. Data is huge. Answering the question, how will this ordinance impact San Antonio specifically? Not just waste diversion, not just housing, but also things like workforce development, cultural heritage, environmental indicators, things like that. So workforce training, this has been something from the city perspective that we are going to invest in indefinitely. We started hosting deconstruction contractor training back in 2019. Like that was 2 or 3 full years before the ordinance was adopted. And we just knew that we had to invest in opportunities to people to gain access to deconstruction contractor training. A big bulk of our workforce training program is focused on upskilling existing contractors. So we have demolition contractors, general contractors, renovation contractors, even house moving contractors going through this training, because they already know kind of how to build things. They're adept at carpentry, they're adept at safety, but they want to understand this, workforce pathway. So we offer this at least once annually, and we offer 2 cohorts during that time. So that's big for us. And then another workforce pathway that we're continuing to grow is one that focuses on people that have no construction background whatsoever as like a college alternative. So we, as an office, have what we call a Living Heritage Trades Academy, and it is a college alternative. We target 18 to 24-year-olds or people that want to transfer out of a different career, and they go through deconstruction contractor training as well. We actually have one scheduled next week at the future Alamo Museum and Visitor Center. So literally across from the Alamo in downtown San Antonio. Those buildings, which are historic across from it, if y'all have been to San Antonio, are largely being gutted and renovated. And we have these workforce contractors and workforce trainings coming in before that like gut demolition work. So they're going to learn how to remove wainscoting, hardwood flooring, structural lumber, amazing light fixtures, architectural details from buildings that were built in the late 1800s. So we consistently as a city try to partner with people like the Alamo, like the National Park Service, to host these trainings. Another dimension was reuse infrastructure. Where is all the material going to go? And that also lies into some of the questions that y'all have been asking about who is going to receive these materials or buy them. So San Antonio does have several reuse facilities, either nonprofit or private. But through our deconstruction contractor or deconstruction advisory committee, we got consistent feedback from a lot of different people, builders, developers, even those reuse retail stores, that the city would need to play a role in, at minimum, providing laydown space for building materials. And that is what created what we call the Material Innovation Center. And that's a picture of it on the left-hand side of reclaimed materials that were donated to our center in the garage there. And this little organ donor analogy kind of underscores a big part of our program, is that we want materials to be used for their original purpose. Like as Steph said, we like reuse, we want reuse. So we prioritize their diversion into a lot of different categories, but the primary one is affordable housing repair. I'm just going to give one very recent example. Our city's housing department administers funding from HUD, from the federal government, to do housing repair programs or demolition and rebuild programs. And this is an example of a house that needed a deep repair program funded by the federal government. And we were able to divert siding to patch the siding that you see missing here from the Material Innovation Center. So this is a before and after, and the city playing the role of matchmaking materials that were donated from a deconstruction to the repair of existing affordable housing stock. So that's kind of not only the circular economy in action, but also that organ donor analogy, skipping the landfill, going straight into productive use. And then another result of investing in city infrastructure is that we're consistently growing our relationship with our universities and architects. I know there's architects on the call. They are my favorite people to work with. So this is an example of kind of growing that partnership. This is a advanced architecture studio from UT San Antonio, and their studio project was focused on how can we build small scale affordable housing like accessory dwelling units, ADU, out of reclaimed materials. And if y'all are interested in learning more about this in practice, like kind of the feasibility of that, what that looked like, I highly recommend going to this website where you can download a very, very robust report that explores that question of how can we use reclaimed materials for housing. So we're continually working with universities on those questions. And then we love data. I don't know why it's not showing up. Oh, that's useless. Okay, so we have had 32 deconstruction projects in fiscal year 23, 43 in 24, and we're estimated to have 80 plus in 2025 because the ordinance is going to expand. So we are largely seeing like consistent investment and growth in those projects. But then in addition to that, we track data around affordable housing projects served, like I just mentioned. So I think what's really key is that, yes, we're talking about waste diversion and there's more like performance metrics that we're tracking right now. We're in the middle of budget season, so this is like top of mind in reporting to our finance department. But this is like the world that can be expanded by adopting a deconstruction ordinance, especially when you have end uses in mind, partners developed, and like a focus on large city goals like climate action, housing, workforce development, cultural heritage, which we've nested ourselves into really intentionally with our policy. And then the last slide I want to show is just kind of like, this is something that we created, a very simple representation of our program way back in 2018. And this still holds true. Like, this is kind of our like centering of why we do what we do and why the city has a deconstruction and circular economy program, is that the way that you take buildings down touches all of these buckets, and all of these buckets are kind of like, they speak to each other. So this has been a really great way of kind of breaking the silos that are really common within city government and like talking to each other and making sure that we're, you know, working together to advance this effort. And just our tagline currently, landfill doesn't deserve these materials, our communities do. So that's kind of our framework and frame of reference, and happy to answer any questions while everyone is speaking in the chat. Thank you all very much.
Beautiful. Well done. Thank you, Stephanie. Such good insights there. All right, we're going to keep the program rolling. And Emily Freeman, if you're ready, Emily joins us from Boulder, Colorado, where she is the policy advisor in the circular economy. And yeah, take it away if you're ready. But if you're not ready, we can transition to our next speaker. Is Emily still here? I think she disappeared. So Brandie, I'm going to transition to our next speaker, Brandie Townsend, who joins us from Atlanta, Georgia, where she is a waste and recycling consultant. So Brandie, go ahead.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, I'm Brandie. And I am from Rome, Georgia, right outside of North Atlanta. And I've been doing deconstruction, landfilling, and waste consulting for several years now. And the idea of the obsolete landfill is really what I stress to municipalities, because in the waste hierarchy, there is really no place for a landfill anymore because of those materials having so much value if placed in the right place, where we see the recycling and the reclaim industries and the commodity value chain is so much greater than putting materials in a hole that creates a liability. And that is what I stress to communities and municipalities today when they are at the end of their landfill life and they want to open up a new landfill cell. I say to them, why are you spending $11 million on digging a hole when you can create a revenue stream out of all of those commodities, particularly if you have a C&D landfill already on your site, it's very easy to create the volume because it's already coming into the landfill, and then just put it in different piles, trummel it out, trummel your rock and sand and gravel out to resell it. Your MRF, your material recovery facility, your recycling center needs to be at the landfill so that those recycling commodities, paper, plastic, glass, aluminum, metals, can all go through the landfill, and there's a revenue stream created. And then a warehouse next to your machine shop can be where you can create and house the reclaimed lumber that's coming in. I know San Antonio has a little bit different space, and there are spaces all over different municipalities that they've already got on their books. It's unused land, unused warehouse space, old Kmart's, old Walmart's, and that is perfect for warehousing the volume that's coming in over the scale. And then there's a workforce sort of driver where here in Rome, we use prison labor, and they are the perfect trainable workforce to build up and then send out into, the community after they've served their time. And then they have some certifications under that: forklift skills, denailing, inventory reclamation skills. And that's really where you get the community play. And the biggest stakeholder I've had the greatest opportunity to work with is your contractor. Over the last couple of years, there was a major corporation that I worked directly with to work with their contractors, because this isn't a give it to them and they will do it. Change is hard for everyone. And I was tasked with hand-holding all contractors for the retail renovations of a major cell phone company. And we had about 5,000 square foot renovations that we went into and parsed out the material beforehand, and understood what was in the let me go to this slide. Understood what was in the space beforehand through Matterports and LiDAR, took an inventory of it, and had a Revit model so that we knew that spec could come out and it could be calculated and by weight, and volume and inventory, and then recorded. So, you don't know how much waste you have unless you're recording it. And I think that's probably the biggest, most enjoyable part, I guess, because I have an architecture background, working with architects to say, okay, when you do your Matterport for your as-built drawings, then I want that as-built drawing and Revit file so that I can create my inventory on all of those materials. So when I have, 10, 15, 25 task chairs and 30, stools and 25 tables, I know who I need to target in that community who will take them, whether it's the library, whether it's the restore, whether it's the, community school down the road or the charter school, because that material, and in this instance, as a case study, FF&E fit outs for commercial spaces are really good quality reusable material. Those task chairs were $200 each or more, and they have definitely a lot of life left. And so we were able to really divert to the right people. I'd have to say in our best example is the ADA handrails. We were doing all gender neutral upgrades bathrooms. So we had, men and women's restrooms, and they had beautiful stainless steel ADA handrails, and they all went to Habitat building homes, restores, because it's high-end faucets and fixtures that is really expensive. And if you can put those in the right direction, they are priceless because handrails don't come cheap. And they are really, especially with senior living housing developments coming on board, they need those type of FF&E fixtures, and the cheaper they are, the better quality, and they hit their minimum building standards a lot quicker, and the building inspector can come in a lot quicker if they've got all of their 80-day facility FF&E fixtures at hand. And same goes for, ironically, toilets. Toilets in commercial spaces are still high end. Toto and Kohler are don't come cheap. And so the reuse of those are a great commodity. And we had success, and that's where our bulky materials, FF&E items, and our concrete by weight got us the numbers that we wanted to see, between 80 and 90% diversion. And that was the goal of the corporation. And then we got into aluminum, which was, all drop ceiling panels come with a really good metal scrapper material market rebate. And I would have to say the biggest sort of challenge I had with working with contractors who are doing renovations is they come in, they want to blow and go because they're on a time limit, and they already have their dumpster picked out, and they just want to throw it all in one. But if I can get them, and this is where pre-construction came into play, you get them in pre-construction planning phase, and you take an inventory of what they're going to demo out. You can then coordinate with them to say, okay, when your demo day hits, you're going to divide it into sections in the space for all your aluminum, drop ceiling, all of your lumber. In this case, we had metal studs, all of your concrete, gypsum board, and sort of aggregate material will go in the dumpster, because that by volume and by weight is gonna nicely go to the C&D landfill and be separated correctly. And then with the bulky FF&E materials, that's where I coordinated all on-site pickups. So they didn't even have to worry about, a dumpster and putting it into a dumpster or paying a dumpster pull, because it was already picked up by Habitat Restore. And that saved them $500 a pull. And that's where the cost comparison comes in. If you can teach a contractor to divide out their material into different sections on site, and then have a metal scrapper coordinated, he'll come pick up the metal material. Most electricians do their own scrapping. Most plumbers do their own plumbing. Scrap in spaces that are commercial spaces. PVC isn't recyclable, and we're working on that, but with plumbers and trades. And then you've got that's the rebate, and the commodity market is what creates the cost comparison and helps reduce the costs, and shows the contractor that if you sort of separate on site, you're going to get your bang for your buck, because you're not paying so many dumpster pulls to the landfill. You're diverting out. And that's the largest stakeholder, and that's really where, if you can speak their language and hold their hand for a couple of projects, you'll have them on board for the next one. Because I've done it across the nation, and here in Atlanta has no ordinances, but Life Cycle Building Center, and there's some really good demo guys who are like, oh, I can make money on all my metal and scrap FF&E materials. Let me do that. and they're willing to listen and willing to learn.
Amazing. Brandie, I just want to give you a 1-minute warning. Oh, are you done? Did I just come in at the exact right time? Wow. Okay, cool. Thank
I'm
you.
finished.
That was amazing. Thank you I love learning about the LiDAR and all the technology to scan and get access to like what materials are coming. And I really liked what you used the pre, like the
Pre-construction phase.
yes, love that.
That's where you got to get your contractor at.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, we're gonna keep it rolling. And Emily, welcome back. I'm glad you were able to make it back into the room. Sorry for the complications. And so, yes, Emily is now here joining us from Boulder, Colorado, where she's the policy advisor in the circular economy. Don't forget to come off mute and you can take it away.
All right, I am trying to do all the things.
You're doing great. I know you're busy hopping from meeting to meeting, talking all things deconstruction. I'm glad you
Oh yeah, we all are. This is the stuff that we love. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Today, I'm going to present on Boulder's deconstruction ordinance, why we care about this, what it means to Boulder. We're going to do a quick deep dive into a city-owned project, the Boulder Community Hospital deconstruction. It's not just city projects, but it's one that we owned. And so we like to kind of present that as a case study so you can understand the process that we took, both as the property owner, but also through managing the GC process. And then we'll be talking a little bit about green workforce development as well. So I kind of like to just start off. This is a picture from Arizona. This is the I-17 between Phoenix and Flagstaff. And one of the first memories that I have that I kind of, when I reflect back on what I care about and what's kind of influenced myself in my career is as I would drive this freeway back and forth with my family, there's a like small hill, maybe small mountain that was getting mined. And every time I just kind of noticed that it would get smaller and smaller, but it was still there. And then one time we came past it, it was just this little tiny like sliver of a mountain that was left. And all I took from that at that point was that gone is gone. Like reflecting back, like those materials were mined. We're never going to be seeing this again. And I think that really ties into demolition. So when you demolish a building, those non-renewable resources are lost forever, whether it's from a historic preservation standpoint, and these are valuable, high-quality building materials, or even if it is from a newer construction, maybe you have materials you can soft strip and recover, or even still taking lumber out of those buildings. If we don't deconstruct and we demolish, gone really is gone. So why did Boulder kind of take on this project, and why do we care about this? So we have a long history of being environmental stewards and really, I think, setting the pace for a lot of environmental work across the US and North America. In our current iteration of our climate action plan, we have set goals to get to an emissions reduction of 70% by 2030. And then moving on towards net zero, and then being a carbon positive city by 2040. The only way that we can get there is to take a deep dive into where our emission sources are. And in 2018, we commissioned a report with Metabolic, and their report highlighted that the greatest source of emissions in Boulder was coming out of our built environment. So if we really so that's greater than transportation, energy, and food. So if we really want to start to move the needle, even those small changes, which really is a big programmatic change in moving towards deconstruction, making those changes are going to really create that exponential shift towards us being able to meet our emissions reductions targets. So growing off of the report, we wanted to develop a deconstruction ordinance. The goals and intent at the outset have been around materials reuse and recycling, gaining compliance from our contractors, because we have had different iterations of materials management requirements in buildings for the last 15 years. But the degree that we got data was really minimal. And so we really wanted to take a strong look at how we could ensure that contractors understood what the requirements are so that Boulder can meet its climate action goals. And we wanted to make sure that we are able to be a lot more transparent in the data we are receiving, so it can help inform future decisions, but it can also allow us to have greater accuracy when we are reporting on our move towards meeting our materials reduction goals, our materials aversion goals, and all that wrapped up into our climate action and emissions reductions goals as well. So here's the here's what we're actually talking about. So we passed the deconstruction ordinance in, or took the effective date of July 1st, 2020. I always like to shout out to City of Palo Alto here as well, because Palo Alto has a very similar structure in terms of what types of buildings and scope of work that we are looking to do. And we have the same exact effective date. So we were the two leaders in terms of getting all residential and commercial buildings who are a full structure removal or a major alteration to be compliant with our deconstruction ordinance. We have traditionally taken this from a diversion percentage requirement, and that was the requirements that had gone through City Council and is what I was tasked with implementing. I would like to say that while we are still using that as a measure, all of our discussions are now shifting to focus on how can we maximize for the reuse of materials, and we are tracking the reuse materials percentage, and we're trying to create those partnerships that will help accelerate the reuse and incentivize the reuse of building materials as well. We did implement a deposit program. I strongly encourage Baltimore to have a look at the different deposit schemes that may exist across the US and in different programs. For us in Colorado, we are not allowed to, because of TABOR, it's the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, we're not able to implement any fees that are deemed to change behavior. If we're changing behavior, that under Colorado statute is looked at as a tax. And so we did an analysis and we were able to confirm that our $1 per square foot refundable deposit is covering the environmental costs of those materials if they were to otherwise have gone to landfill, or that delta between deconstruction and demolition. The $1 per square foot is met, but we could additionally go up to over $6 per square foot. One of the mechanisms that I like to take is looking at policy language that allows us to see how we can get all contractors on board. How can we work with the GCs? How can we work with the property owners to prioritize deconstruction and the salvage for donation and reuse of those materials versus having to lean on a higher fee, which could create disparities for those who might not otherwise be able to afford deconstruction. So I wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of where we are at. This is the data that we have so far, and you can see the residential square footage versus the commercial square footage. And when we initially thought we're only having a few commercial projects per year, you can see in most cases, the total square footage from the residential side is actually greater than the commercial side. So I am happy to say that like focusing on both is showing and proving fruitful for us. I want to point out this 58% for the commercial. In that case, we had several projects with extensive environmental hazards, and that brought down the available building materials that were clear of those hazards that could be diverted from the landfill. So our numbers could be potentially higher. I also want to point out for the commercial side, we've had 92% for this past year, and that's going to be as a result of our hospital deconstruction, which I'll talk to next. What you're also not going to see on this side is before we added in the hospital deconstruction, we were at 73.5% diversion across all projects. The hospital, you could say, either skewed the numbers high, but another way of looking at that is that it actually allowed us to see if all projects were performing to the same level, we could easily expect to reach 85%, if not higher, in terms of our diversion. So I'm going to briefly give you an overview of the hospital deconstruction project. It was actually 4 buildings. So it's this hospital, which is kind of the outline that I have here. We have the pavilion building, which has a shared wall with the old hospital, but is a non-structural wall. So we were able to do interior deconstruction of both of these buildings. But we are going to be utilizing the pavilion for adaptive reuse. And it's going to be the hub of the city's new Western campus. So my offices will eventually be in that building. And then we had a parking garage in the Brenton building next door that were also part of the initial purchase. I have greatly reduced these slides. I just wanted to give you a quick overview. We went through each room and did a detailed inventory. So we've heard other people talk about that pre-construction phase, and that is exactly what we're doing. We are inventorying all the available materials, whether it's fixtures, pumps, mechanical equipment, lighting, ceiling tiles, carpet tiles, doors, cabinetry. We inventoried all of that material, and these were just some highlights that we wanted to kind of bring forth. We saved the grab bars, which I heard another presenter talk about. Those were all donated to different Boulder senior community organizations to help with ADA and safety in people's homes. The doors were not only donated, they were made into park benches and planter boxes, but other cities contacted us as well, and were able to reuse those buildings. A unique aspect to this is that we did utilize an auction house to sell off a number of these different building materials, and that's not something that we have taken the steps to do in the past. We would have maybe just sent this off to scrap metal for recycling, but as I said, this is a case study for the city to see how much was possible for us to reuse and maximize that side of deconstruction as well. But the true highlight is our steel reuse. We removed 588 steel I-beams, which you can see laid down here in the bottom picture. And those 588 pieces kind of came out in a jigsaw pattern, and we're able to work with our structural engineer, KLNA, and with our GC as well, to really say, let's move this forward as a case study. Let's see what is possible. So we're able to do tensile strength, material strength testing on these I-beams. You'll see here this marker, it says FS3, that's Fire Station 3. We were able to identify at over 90 beams for the reuse in the new construction of the new Fire Station 3. So you'll be able to see those beams that have been placed into the building. So instead of steel being infinitely recycled, we said, you know what, there are still a lot of emissions, and if you really want to get it to, if you're looking at the embodied carbon of a building, the maximizing the amount of material for reuse is the only way that you're going to get the embodied carbon of that building down to zero, or as close to zero as possible. So we're really proud of this. We're the first city, or really we're the first construction in the US to have deconstructed, salvaged, and then reused structural components such as these I-beams. We still have a number of projects or a number of these beams remaining. So we are selling those for $1 per transaction. Whether you buy 1 beam or 100, it will just cost $1 for that. Oh, I went the wrong direction. Another piece of that hospital deconstruction was the materials crushing. So we decided to crush the remaining concrete form building on site. We're able to use both that pavilion building, which is adaptive reuse, and the north wall of the hospital as a sound barrier, because literally if you look in this corner, that is a residential street, and there are $3 million homes on that street. We had no complaints related to dust or to noise during the entire rock crushing operation. What we wanted to highlight here is that not only was this, the hospital is now filling in the hole, we calculated that we saved 2,820 dump truck hauls, whether we were to haul that material off to an aggregate recycler, and in addition to that, the return trips back to that site. And so Brandie, you were just talking in your presentation about how do you calculate those costs, and we want to highlight that we don't have the exact numbers, but I think that really highlights it's avoided emissions, it's avoided costs, it's of hauling, it's the avoided costs of having to purchase those, and paying for those truckloads as well. So overall, we had a 94% diversion rate when you are combining both the interior and exterior deconstruction of the building. So it really is an amazing win. We were at 98. If you just took the core and shell of the building, we're at 98.5% as well. So we're really proud of the project, but it really was this policy of having deconstruction prioritized and required that really drove the city towards this innovation. We often get asked about the costs, so I just want to quickly dive into this. It did cost about 16% more to deconstruct the hospital versus traditional demolition, and really only about an additional 2.5 months longer. I think part of the ways that we could get the building materials down is if we're looking at how to better calculate the cost of the reuse of the materials. In this, we just are talking the strict deconstruction versus demolition. With the sale of those I-beams at only $1 per transaction, I think there's a lot more costs that could have been recovered had we sold those I-beams at a more market rate value as well. So, and we did not in this calculation account for the rock crushing that occurred on site. So there's different ways of looking at that. So yes, it was 16%, but I think if we look at avoided costs and then potential costs from the sale of valuable materials, there are different ways that we could have brought down this amount. I can't tell you by how much, but that is something that we would want anyone to consider as well. So what are our lessons learned, especially as it relates to the Boulder Hospital deconstruction, is inventorying and knowing where those material markets are going to be is crucial for the success of that project. It takes significant time to plan, stage, and resources. We're very lucky that we own the property, so we are still able to store those I-beams on site without having to worry about how quickly those materials are moving as well. And that last point is that single owner. We own the steel. We were then able to initially just match it straight to a city project. Since then, we've worked with about 12 other projects that are both a mix of commercial and residential, and even farms that are going to be reusing this material. And we're keeping it all local to Colorado because we're trying to keep the associated transportation emissions of that material down as well. So when we're talking about workforce development, we have been doing a lot of outreach to our contractors through trainings and webinars back in COVID times. And we have a deconstruction or working group that is meeting that combines our haulers, our deconstruction contractors, our material and market processors, and of course, the city as well. So Colorado has set up a job quality framework. And if we want to create jobs that are relevant to us, we need to figure out how we can attract, we can create excitement, and we can create skills that are going to continue to elevate the green jobs and elevate the people who are seeking these jobs. Deconstruction is difficult work. It takes a certain person who would like to be able to be out there, but it's construction in reverse. It allows us to also say that if you learn to deconstruct a building, you're going to better understand how it goes together in the first place. So these are transferable skills that a worker can take from throughout their career in the construction field. I spoke with several of our leading deconstruction contractors, and the consensus is that between 2 to 3 people are needed to take down a residential building within 1 to 2 days. But with deconstruction, the crew sizes are varying from 4 at the very lowest to about 8, and it's taking about 10 to 14 days to take down a similarly sized home. These are people who are not just, our contractor said, we're not advertising these jobs. It's word of mouth. It's how we can build this. And going back to some stuff that Stephanie said, we are looking at ways that we can grow our training opportunities, where we can create that, the environment we can create that environment where people are gaining the skills that they need to be able to go to these companies and get those quality jobs as well. So I feel like I've only talked on a few things. I'm like all over the place, but
no worries. But we do, we need to save time for the next one. But
this is my wrap-up slide. Where are we going? We are looking at ways that we can require source separation, moving towards the GC responsibilities. And as I said before, we're looking at ways and mechanisms to maximize and incentivize the reuse of building materials. We're doing a lot of outreach with the Colorado Mass Timber Coalition, the Colorado Green Building Coalition, AIA Colorado, and Carbon Leadership Forum. So we can't do it without this entire team. So that's all. I'm going to stop there.
Well said. Yes, we've been preaching to this ecosystem that we're building with collaboration. So hoping to get as many collaborators from tonight's. So thank you so much for all of that information. I know it's hard to condense because there's so much information to share. So thank you, you did an excellent job. You can stop sharing so I can get the next one to share. Thank you. All right, I know we're a little over time, but I still think we're going to make it in time. So Dave Bennink is our next and final guest speaker for the night. He is the director of the Building Deconstruction Institute and owns Reuse Consulting. He trains groups, focuses on reusable materials, embodied carbon, and has salvaged, deconstructed over 5,000 projects in North America, is existing in the circular economy since 1993. Take it away, Dave.
Okay, I'm gonna keep the camera off because my reception is kind of limited here. And I'll keep it quick because we're almost out of time.
Thank you.
See if I can get the slides to go forward. Yeah, so yeah, we've diverted about 100 million pounds from landfill, not including concrete, of course, because that's kind of a prerequisite for us. Lots of job sites, lots of jobs created. Gosh, we're almost to 100. So we've almost helped start 100 circular businesses across North America. So we're getting really close on that number. That's exciting. You know, I work all over the place. Almost every city that you've mentioned in the entire presentation today, I've been or helped with. Portland, Detroit, everywhere, you know, Pittsburgh, you name it. So, and I love this project I did in Baltimore, where we got to practice on a mid-block row house. You see it's kind of rough what we left behind, but all of the row was being demolished, so we didn't have to do it. We didn't have to clean it up too much, you know, because it was just going to get demolished after we left, but good practice anyway. And, you know, the project was something years ago that was there to help the mayor kick off, you know, yet another deconstruction kind of promotion. And so we had some local partners there that you see in Baltimore, and we had Mayor Rawlings Blake, you know, right after that, I think, started the vacant value project. But that's something where we, you know, look at our job site, and it was something to try and help promote deconstruction in the Baltimore area, which was already going on, but it was just another effort. My talk today is mainly, you asked mainly to me to speak about workforce development. So I wanted to bring up this, you know, to talk about, like, I could talk about numbers all the time. We have lots of numbers. We've diverted so much material, and but we're going to talk about Calvin today. Calvin was a worker that had later he shared his past with me. He said that he was young and he started doing drugs, and he started selling drugs, and then he went to jail for selling drugs, and he came out of that having never, according to him, never worked a day of his life for, you know, a regular job. And he started on the deconstruction training program that we were putting on in Baltimore. And I noticed that Calvin was, you know, he'd wear his safety gear and everything. He'd wear it when he got on the bus, and he would be wearing it when he got off the bus. And we were trying to figure out if he was just the safest person in all of Baltimore, or if there was a reason behind it. And, you know, it turns out that Calvin was, he was arrested when he was living at home, and when he left prison, he went back home to the same street, and he got a lot of flack from the neighbors. He got a lot of side eye and stuff like that. And what we realized, what he told me is, he goes, you know, when I wear this uniform, essentially, everyone in the neighborhood knows that I'm back on track, that I am doing something for myself. I'm doing something for the community. And he was proud of that. And I think that it just highlights the human side of what we're doing. There's a lot of people doing this work that are dedicated to it for various reasons, historic preservation, or helping the community, or helping the environment, or helping all of those things at the same time. Take all of these projects and put them on steroids, and you have New York City's new circular construction program, which we were chosen to be the circular consultant for their flagship project, which is called Spark Kips Bay, and basically an 800,000 square foot building complex that is meant to be incorporate everything that you have talked about today and some more, all in one project in a very difficult Manhattan location. And so I have to basically deconstruct it. Well, I'm the consultant. I don't have to do anything, but I get to talk about, or I get to figure out how to deconstruct an enormous building in the middle of Manhattan and get that material to its home or multiple homes, whatever that is. We're talking reuse on site, reuse elsewhere, reuse outside the city, repair, remanufacturing, recycling, and then more advanced levels of reuse of intact concrete slabs or intact concrete walls or intact brick walls, and you name it. So I don't have a lot of time to go into it, but just know that this is supposed to be New York City's kickoff, where they intend to make this effort. And again, yeah, really everything you're hearing about today, like workforce development, and this is a government entity that's promoting deconstruction, that's standing behind it. We're going to try and do our best for them to see that a lot of this material is saved, and I mean a lot. And but the exciting part is the reuse of these materials in the new structures, and so we of course have to figure out what's in them, and then we have to figure out what to do about that. But as was mentioned earlier a couple of times, it's hard to do these projects without infrastructure, so we are also working on that side. The mayor of New York City has committed to creating 400,000 green collar jobs or circular jobs, and that's an amazing goal, and we are going to help them do that through not just this project but other projects. So currently we have 4 New York City projects that I'm involved in, and we are going to try and connect these different projects, the materials that they have and the materials that we have, and into some giant database of materials that will help inform the architects of each project on how to not only reuse things from their site, but perhaps reuse things from other sites. And so we start thinking of buildings as material banks, and think of online marketplace and all sorts of things to accomplish this. But a lot of it is the workforce training. We're going to have to do a lot of training to get people up to speed. There's obviously New York City has a huge infrastructure already, and I'm not trying to underestimate it. We're actually trying to understand it right now, and we're trying to create a master database of all of the circular businesses in the region. So, but on top of that, we really hope that we will bolster each of those existing businesses. We'll start new businesses, and we will create literally thousands, if not tens of thousands, of circular jobs in the coming years, because this is only the first project and it's 800,000 square feet. So something exciting to keep an eye on in New York City. And was that my last slide? Oh, I guess my final slide was just, we always like to end with this slide where we just say, look, on one end of the street, you have demolition. On the other end of the street, you have deconstruction. There's a lot of opportunities in between those two extremes. We always encourage people to try to do something as opposed to nothing. And a lot of times that projects like Kips Bay nothing might have been the answer before this initiative that they put in place. So they're going for everything, and but I think a lot of communities could say, look, let's just do something and see how far we can get, and maybe over time we can get all the way. That's all I have. I didn't have a lot of time left for me, so
Excellent.
All good, Dave. Thank you. I definitely appreciate And I thank all of our speakers, and if a councilwoman give her a couple minutes to speak to something, we might go a little bit over, but that's the great thing about recording. If for whatever reason you need to piece out, we understand. It'll be online. We'll put it on all our various social media websites, all that good stuff. But I jump in to say that there's been some interesting discussion going on regarding the demand needs in Baltimore when it comes to material. As I mentioned, we have a lot of information with us today, very important stuff, that Baltimore's policy would be the first in the country to require a minimum usage of that reclaimed material. The demand is going to continue to increase because the city's policy, by default, it's going to make it increase. And so that is a key point in driving the demand. Plus, I know that Stephanie responded to the comments in the chat. And when it comes to consistently getting materials that are less expensive, by localizing material, you are going to minimize. And that's the situation when it comes to recycling glass, for example. It's too heavy to transport anywhere, so it ends up downcycled in a road construction and landfill cover. By actually maximizing the value of the material they used locally, decrease the cost, which maximize the value of the recovered material, and then you proceed to reuse it. That's what we're aiming to do here with the ReBUILD. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are going to be impacted. I really like that Dave was our last speaker, our official speaker, because when it comes to the city, we need a robust economic opportunity for the communities of color, the low-income communities of Baltimore, the community where the incinerator is located, Westport, adjacent communities of Cherry Hill, Morrill Park, and the like. Like, we don't have the opportunities that should be in front of folks that may not have been able to in high school, let alone get a college degree. And so by actually committing our time and energy to this conversation is crucial to making our city a better place and passing policies like the ReBUILD Act, other policies that are going to need to come along, because this isn't the end. We need to move towards zero waste across. But the fact that C&D is just such a massive section, Emily's point, of our emissions, the embodied carbon, the fact that there are going to be just a requirement of new businesses beyond Second Chance, the unloading dock. There are going to need to be more businesses in the south side of the city, the east side of the city, that can handle this material, so that way it's not illegally dumped in communities. It can actually be maximized for future. So we're in this conversation right now to make sure that we can get across the finish line and be a leader in this country when it comes to a requirement for new developments to utilize reclaimed materials, minimize costs, to create more jobs, give folks like Calvin, who live in multiple communities throughout the city, an opportunity to actually have a living wage and sustainable economic system around them. So I say all that to say that this is obviously just the start of our revamp of doing conversations around deconstruction, but we have to look at all of this as why we want to pass this policy. If we want to create jobs, if we want to minimize the desperation that leads to crime, we need to create the systems that create the jobs that eliminate the need and desperation. And so that's why I'm here. And I hope that other folks are joining me in that, to have those conversations, to continue to think about what we need to do to make sure that this can get across the finish line and impact not only the environmental aspect, but the economic aspects of our. And so, Councilwoman, if you are here and you'd like to say a couple of words, I will pass it to you.
Hi, yes. Thank you very much, everybody. I learned a lot, as I always do. I know we're out of time, but I really want a dialogue next, because I want to hear from practitioners in the field, particularly our development community, what ideas you have to help us make this work. Whether or not the tax credit idea that we have is going to work. I love the ideas that I saw in the chat about, why not making some, direct connections with some of the, developments, like we could have done it with the PSO project, which is the Brooklyn Somerset Old Town project. we could tie it to, you know, conditions for tax breaks already rather than creating something new, you know. So there's a lot of good things that I think we started to think about today. And I'm interested to hear more from all of you and other stakeholders as we look to build the policy to see, you know, what's really going to be what's going to work. So I really have enjoyed reading the chat and listening to the dialogue, and I look forward to more of that. Thank you very much for everybody's time today and being very involved in this really important topic. My colleagues have been really focused on zero waste, but more on the composting side. And I had to remind them that a significant portion of our waste going into the incinerator is actually construction waste, and that we need to have more of a diverse portfolio, if you will, of zero waste strategies, even looking at at the state level, a bottle bill, you know, a bottle deposit. So I agreed to take on the deconstruction piece, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you so that we get this right. So thank you very much for everybody's time today. I really appreciate it.
And I open the floor to anyone else that wants to share anything before we end.
Yeah, any questions, any comments? Great to you. I've really appreciated the suggestions and questions of concern potentially and things like that. Those are all very helpful.
Yeah,
you know,
I'll speak up. My name is
Go
Ned
ahead.
Carey, and I'm a small developer, and I'm really excited about this. And I'm shocked that much volume goes into the landfills or incinerators. That's surprising, but I'm always concerned about the unintended consequences of laws. And when I hear you talking about the cost benefit, you know, it sounds great on the surface, but there's a lot of hidden costs that those that aren't in the business don't recognize. And slowing down a project, well, for example, you mentioned 16%. Now, granted, that didn't include recovery that could have come from the sale of those items, but imagine if 16%, if all housing costs 16% more to build. We talk about a housing crisis and the cost of housing. We've got to be very careful that we don't inadvertently drive up the cost of, you know, construction and housing, you know, by doing this. But in general, I support the concept. I think it's really cool. We've just got to be careful that we do it in an intelligent way.
Absolutely, thank you. And I'm curious of our speakers if anyone wants to speak to that particular
I mean, I'm happy to speak to that because we had the exact same comments, Ned, in Portland when we were starting the Portland deconstruction ordinance there, and one of 12 that I've helped with nationwide. And you know, one of the things was that my goal was to make deconstruction viable, economically viable, by making it time competitive and cost competitive. And so we kept experimenting with doing deconstruction of homes where we could get it down to 2 to 3 days, and we were successful. We've done 300 or 400 buildings now that have taken 2 or 3 days, and in that, you know, you are sensitive to a developer's schedule, because that's the time it generally takes to demolish a home. Or sometimes we get a head start on demolition because there are things we can do before the demolition crew would have started. But the main thing is that we've been able to knock down the amount of time it takes. And then when it comes to the amount of the cost, well, with that time, with taking less time, it does cost less now. And as you develop markets for materials, we've been able to be cost competitive as well. And so about 95% of our projects, we had to compete with machines. We had to compete with demolition time schedules and budgets. And we were able, and of course we were successful because I'm talking about projects that we successfully secured. only about 5% of them were the clients willing to give us more time or give us more, specifically give us more money, you know, so there's a lot of hope there. I think it's all about training and getting people up to speed.
Well, I hear you talking about both small projects. Like I thought it was interesting that in one of the cities they started the requirements for 1 to 4 housing, and then they were going to expand it to 8 and larger. It would seem to me that the larger the product, the larger the project, the more the economies of scale of taking the time to divide things up and putting in different piles would make more sense. And as I look, typical renovation in Baltimore, Dave, the picture you showed where you literally demolish the house, typical renovation in Baltimore is more like just interior demolition. And I would assume that a lot of these techniques could be used for, just interior demolition too. There's a lot of good, my house is 100 years old, and the wood in that is like
Yeah.
you can't pull a nail out because the wood's so hard. So it's great to be reusing this old wood, but just want to make sure that I guess I'm curious. Are you talking about partial demolition, interior demolition, or just total demolition versus not deconstruction?
I think the time when people are doing comparisons, they're talking about mechanical, demolition where everything is destroyed. The whole building is, the whole structure, whatever kind of structure is removed, versus deconstruction of the same structure where everything is removed. But obviously we have extreme advantage when it comes to renovations where there is no machine. It is, a demolition crew doing it by hand, or us doing it by hand. Then we have much easier time competing in that case, because we're not having to spend money to throw it away. But yeah, it doesn't matter the project. It is true that in New York, we were part of a project where they demolished, 12 buildings in a row. And then we had a project where we deconstructed 12 homes in a row. And we use those economies of scale, and we use the bigger site. As we cleared homes, we had more and more space. And so we saw on both projects that there are advantages to doing multiple projects at once. And but yeah, I think it's just, I just have a track record of winning, but I don't win all the time, so there's it is difficult, I'll tell you that. It is something, but it is something to be, like we were in Portland, to be sensitive to developers, hear all the voices as you have asked for, that input from everyone. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and to Ned's point, really quickly, because I'd love to continue the conversation we go for minutes on the recording. Similar question. When it comes to the potential indirect increase of cost of housing, we recognize that the ReBUILD Act is not going to be the only policy Baltimore City needs to pass in order to make sure that not only are we reclaiming materials, minimizing costs, minimizing environmental inequities when it comes to the exposure of these materials are demolished versus constructed. We also know that there still needs to be additional affordable housing allocations in the city budget. There needs to be an additional affordable housing policy to make sure that gentrification is not occurring, and pushing more of the folks in these majority Black communities with a very limited economic opportunity, but very limited environmental justice within them as well, to be just shoved out and then replaced with, $1 million homes or whatever it is. And so we know that this particular policy intersects with a lot of those things, but I agree with you that we want to make sure that while this policy is being enacted, that other things are also in to avoid this. I definitely. Okay, so a few more minutes, because I do love this conversation. Anyone who wants to ask a question or just make a comment, and it's free to do so.
Dante, this is just a quick question. Are we going to be able to capture the chat as well?
I think
Yes.
we can save chat all throughout this
Okay.
and updating it every time a new comment comes in. So yeah.
Perfect. There's some really good comments and
I
resources.
know. And as I'm looking through it now, there were some good comments from Julian. Is Julian still here? I just wanted to make sure you got your questions answered. And if you wanted to expound on any of that here, Eric, you had some really good comments in there as well. If anyone wants to say anything now is your time.
Well, I'll just comment. First of all, thanks everyone, Steph, Dante, for this event. It's been lovely and informative. But a lot of the questions that I came in with actually were answered by Emily's presentation. I wanted to thank you. Those are some really impressive case studies and results in terms of the reuse of the steel and getting through like ownership hurdles and, you know, testing and inspection hurdles as far as understanding, you know, what the condition of the steel is and just having a process for that and people who are willing to cooperate and sign off and make that happen is really impressive and I think a great model to hold up. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And if you have any specific questions or want to know more details, I can get into that. I try to breeze through that, but I'm glad you were able to get information you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yes, and all of our guest speakers are on LinkedIn, so you can definitely continue connecting with these people. And I think all of their emails were shared, so I'll definitely share them again in the follow-up email for folks that want to keep in touch. Julian, did you want to come on off mute?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is half thought through, but first of all, thank you for answering everyone's questions in the chat or on video. And I guess I don't know if this is a tension, but I'm feeling a tension between like this being a sustainability and workforce development program versus this being like a marketable, profitable thing that like creates a whole new markets for these materials. And I was wondering, like, are those two things mutually exclusive or not? Or like, how do you understand the tension between those two considerations?
I wish Quest
Yeah,
could
opening
join
that
us
to
today.
wants
Yeah,
to
go ahead,
answer that.
Dante.
No, I was just asking, like, I'm curious, are our speakers would want that first?
Quick answer from me would be, it is absolutely not mutually exclusive. We regularly look at it as trying to accomplish multiple good things at the same time. You know, you could have a for-profit business, you could have a nonprofit, you could have workforce development, you could help the environment. It's all accessible, all available, all at the same time. We've done it, you know, thousands of times, and we've proven that over and over. And that's what makes deconstruction so incredible, and it also allows for access to different pots of money that y'all should be thinking about, because that's one of the ways that you can keep deconstruction costs down, or you can help train the industry up by realizing, you know, showing people how good this is and why it is very fundable and you know, can access money from different pots.
Great.
Thank you for that, Dave. Yeah, go ahead, Julian.
Oh, I was thinking, Dave.
Yeah, any other folks want to comment to that? Very great.
All right. Well, I want to give a thank you to everyone for sharing your Monday evening with us. We truly appreciate it. Again, this is our 5th stakeholder meeting, and so we will be doing more of these as we continue working with Councilwoman Odette Ramos. Larry, thank you for coming. Emily, thank you for coming and speaking. And Brandie, thanks for your expertise on the matter. Stephanie, Phillips, Deconstruction, Dave, you're crucial in being here today. I want to acknowledge the folks from Second Chance in the audience, Mark, Clay, and Gustavo. If y'all wanted to say anything before we part, we haven't heard anything from you guys yet, but I think that's it for everyone in the room. Cool. All right. Well, expect my follow-up email with all the good resources, and we'll stay tuned for the next meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Josie, hang on, and then obviously a debriefing we can.
Ooh, I'll stop the recording. All right.